We're going to be talking today about how to negotiate a multifamily deal. There's a lot of different ways to do it. This is our way. And so I think it's the best way for us. It may not apply to your specific situation, but you're still going to find some good content, and you'll see why. We're actually going to go through and fill out an LOI. And it's going to be our template LOI, which I'm also going to share with you at the end of it. So we're going to go ahead and when you receive the recording email for this webinar, there'll be a link to a Dropbox link. There'll be a Dropbox link in that email for this document. It's going to be obviously sterilized without our letterhead and everything else on that and some of our specific nomenclature, but you will receive the LOI template, which you can use to submit LOIs on your very own multifamily property. So we want to jump in, and be sure to type your questions in the question and answer box as we go through. So step number one in negotiating a multifamily deal is having a multifamily deal to negotiate. And I talk about this often, and you have to have your broker relations set up in advance. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but you, number one, have to have broker relations because you have to have deal flow. Having broker relations gets you deal flow. And that could be anything from just being on their email chain or having, communications with them. So they're talking to you about deals. So we're going to skip all that section and go right to having a deal. So you receive a deal. Now, normally when we receive deals, it's going to be through an email offering. We're going to talk about on-market deals. On-market deals are going to receive a, coming soon or, new offering from whoever it is, different brokers, Cushman, Wakefield, Walker, Dunlap, CBRE, NKF, JLL, any of the major brokers. They're going to send out an email with the deal. You're going to click on the deal offering, sign the CA, which is the confidentiality agreement, and you're going to get the financials from that property. The number one thing, or the very first thing I do when I see a new deal, and number one, it's fitting my criteria, it's fitting my market, it's fitting everything that I need. So I'm already to that point. I've already qualified the deal in my mind. The number one thing I'm going to do is reach out to the broker. I'm going to ask him him or her two questions. I'm going to ask, what's the guidance and what's the CFO? That's call for offers date. The guidance is, what is the pricing guidance that you have on this deal? That may seem a little bit different to some of you, may seem counterintuitive. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to know where they have priced this deal. So that's number one. So I'm going to get the price. I'm going to get the CFO date. CFO date is going to be the call for offers. That's going to give me the time frame. So how quickly do I need to get out and take a look at this property? How much time do I have to get it to underwriting? How much time do I have to discuss it with the managing partners to make sure we're all on board? So that gives me the time frame. And so I do want to stop for a second and talk about getting the guidance price. The guidance price is very, very important. A lot of times I hear people talking about underwriting a deal and it's got to hit their criteria, and they offer the price that makes sense for their model. And that's fine. You don't want to bid more than you can. Obviously, you have to hit your return metrics that you have set for your specific, buyer pools or investors. But don't offer on a deal where you're offering way lower than their guidance. It's just a waste of time. So the reason I get that guidance, first off, is because if I can go ahead and put it into underwriting real quick, I can tell at that price, I can tell whether that deal is going to work or not at a high level. And then we'll tighten it up or sharpen our pencils, as they say, as we go on. But I can tell you right now that the guidance is very valuable. Now that guidance price is going to be your entry level price. And we do have a question. I'll go ahead and address that. Is guidance the same as whisper price? Yeah, pretty much. There's different terms for it. Another term that's more on the broker side is BOV, or broker's opinion of value. It's the same thing. It's where they're guiding you to bid on this property. And I'm just here to tell you that it's going to go, most of the time, I can say 95% of the time, that price is going to go up from that guidance. I've never seen it go down in the past several years, down from guidance. I've seen it come in at guidance, but I've never seen it go down. So that is the starting number, not the end number. So you want to get that and then start your underwriting process and then go ahead and get, go from there. It frustrates brokers when you put in an offer much lower than what they gave you the guidance on. It's like, well, were they even listening to me? That's literally what they say. I have many conversations with many brokers, and they really appreciate, offers that are on target. The rest of them are just dismissed. That, there are going to be groups that are going to hit the guidance, and if you're way below that, just because it hits your metric, don't even offer on it. It's not doing you any good. It will make you seem less legitimate in the buying process. Okay, so that's my first piece of advice to you. If you can't offer the guidance price based on your metrics, then don't offer on that. Now, I will give you a caveat on that. That is for a little bit larger deals, definitely not for mom and pop. That's going to be a little bit different because you're probably dealing with a local broker. And if it's listed with a local broker, they probably have a price, like this is the price and you just have to pay that price. And you may negotiate that down from there. That's a little bit different. I'm talking about institutional or mid-range multifamily, 100 units plus is what we're talking about here. So when you're dealing with, again, I'm going to run through the brokers that I deal with on a regular basis. It's going to be Cushman Wakefield, Walker Dunlap, Berkadia, NKF. Cushman Wakefield, I said that one, JLL. So those are the ones that we deal with most. And this is the same process we go through with all of those. Once we get that number and we've qualified all of our underwriting and the deal's good. Okay. So we're going to skip all the details of all the underwriting and all the work that's involved in that. Because in the meantime, we're getting pro formas from our management company. We're checking out all the comps. We're touring the property. So that's just stuff you do, on top of this. This is about negotiating the deal. So as we're doing that, I'm touching base with the broker and I'm just getting a feel like, hey, how's the interest on this? Are you getting more interest than you thought, less interest than you thought? How's your pricing coming? Do you think it's going to be at guidance or, and you just keep that contact going. That's very important because if you reach out right at the beginning and then they don't hear from you all the way until call for offers, CFO date, then they're going to assume that you're not really interested. And so they may dismiss you in their minds with some people that have been in more contact with them throughout the process. So don't be annoying, but stay in contact. Maybe shoot an email. Hey, we're checking out the comps. Everything looks good on this property. Excited to put an offer on whatever date they've set. So make sure you stay in contact. Make sure you keep them close to you. One question that we have at this point in time is, don't you think that a lot of these properties are overpriced by the broker? Overpriced is relative to the returns that you're trying to meet. If the cap rate is not way out of whack with the market, it may be higher in per door price than what some of the other properties are. But if you can hit your return metrics, and it's a good cash flowing property and there's a lot of upside there, then, in my opinion, there is no such thing as an overpriced property. If it's making money, it's making money. That's the end of the story. Now, I'm not going to pay, a 3.5 cap for, a Charlotte property, but, within reason, if it hits your metrics and it's making money, then the price is kind of irrelevant at that point in time. The only thing you have to pay attention to at that point is resale. So if you have a real tight cap rate, let's say you're in the low 4s, in a Charlotte market, let's just say, then when you go to sell, you're probably going to have to sell for a higher cap rate than what you bought it for. So again, if you're able to do that and still hit your IRR numbers or your cash on cash numbers, then that's fine. That's not really an issue. And you want to always underwrite for an expansion anyways, but I don't want to get too deep into the underwriting. I want to stick on with the negotiation. So as we get to the CFO day, I've already toured the property. Touring the property, there is some value. You can drive the comps, drive the property, get a feel for it, see how many, see like what kind of cars are in the parking lot. Are they in good shape? Are they broken down? Are there a lot of cars during the day? I know it's a little bit tough with COVID to tell that. And it depends on whether you're looking at a C, B, or A property on how that may be. Because some of our properties, there's a lot of cars. A lot of people are consultants that are working from home now with COVID. So it's harder to judge that than it was before COVID. But you can drive the comps, you can get a feel for the submarket. But the biggest benefit to touring the property is getting face-to-face time with the broker. Showing interest, showing your knowledge of the market, showing, I try to go out to lunch with the broker afterwards if I can, just try to build that relationship as much as possible. That's all part of the negotiation process. And, talk yourself up, talk about, how much experience you have, if you don't, talk about, different deals that you've been a part of, or, do the best you can. It's kind of like an interview. Just do the best you can to put yourself forward in the best light possible. As you move closer to best and final date, I usually wait till the actual call for offers date. That date is a little bit tricky. So on that date, a lot of people are waiting. They're waiting till all the offers come in, and then they're calling the broker and say, okay, where is the cutoff going to be for best and final? And I misused the term. I said when best and final comes up earlier. When call for offers come up, you're calling the broker on that day, and the number one question I'm asking him is, what is the best and final cutoff? Okay. And what does that mean? That means that on average, depending on the market and the deal, you're going to have 20 or 30 groups bidding on this property. They're not going to take all 30 and get another bid. They're going to take the top 5. And when I say top 5, it's not always the top 5 in number. It's the top 5, like, most legitimate groups. Okay. So let's say this group looks good. This group looks good. And their offer is with guidance, and they'll give you a cutoff. Like if you're below, let's just say 20 million, then anybody below 20 million is not going to best of final. Okay. And then, if you can't hit 20 million, even if guidance was 19 and he's telling you, they're telling you best and final cutoff is at 20, then it's not going to do you any good. Okay. You say, well, we can't hit that. Sorry. We'll see at the next one. But hopefully you've underwritten it well enough where you have some expansions. Because remember that guidance price was the starting price. All right. So after that, now on call for offers day, there's going to be a lot of people delaying and trying to wait to the last moment. So they're like the last group in to the group to get better guidance, to get a better feel. A lot of groups won't even offer till the next day. If the call for offers date is on Friday, some groups won't offer until Monday. That's not necessarily a problem. You just want to listen to the broker in those cases. I've done that. I did that this week. Matter of fact, I had a deal I was working on. The call for offers was Friday. I called the broker and he said, I'm still waiting on some stuff to come in. I don't have good guidance for you. Now, he's not going to tell me exactly where everybody else is at, but he's going to give me a range. He's like, why don't we wait till Monday? Let's touch base Monday, and we'll get a better feel then. So, and that's what we did. The thing you got to be careful about with not offering on the CFO date is the seller. If the seller is someone that's really paying attention, like a really, experienced seller, they're paying attention to who offered on time, because one of the things they're looking at is, can this group close this deal, and can they close it on time? And if they can't even submit an LOI on time, that's your letter of intent, then how do I know they can get their inspections done on time, or the PSA signed, the purchase and sale agreement? How do I know they're going to be able to get any of that done on time? So be careful with delaying offering your LOI past the CFO date. Just talk to your broker, get guidance from them. And that's really where that relationship comes into play, and I have personal relationships with the broker where I'm talking about, some of the younger brokers, who where they're going on vacation, or, even their dating life, we talk about those things, because I'm interested, and it helps build the relationship. Right. So you have to be on that level. I have one question. You don't have your own broker representing you. You work with the listing broker directly, usually? Question. That is correct. This is not like single family real estate where you have a buyer and seller broker. This is just the listing broker. There's only one broker on the side. They're working for both sides. But remember that they're working for the seller the most. And the more that they get for the property, the more that they make in commission. So it's a hockey stick kind of thing. Like if they hit their BOV, the broker opinion of value, then they get this amount. If they, but then from there, if they get, let's say just 50,000 more, it goes up. And so they're trying to push it as well. So be mindful of that. That's where, again, those relationships come into play, where you learn to trust your brokers. But there's no buyer, broker, seller, broker in the space that we're in. There may be sometimes in your smaller, on your duplexes and maybe quads, you're going to see that sometimes. All right. So call for offers comes in, you made it to best and final. He said, here it is. You offer it, you send the LOI in. And I'll come back to the LOI in a minute. So, you send the LOI in, and then you have best and final. Okay. Usually they're going to send you a questionnaire that you're going to have to fill that out. It's going to have who's in your group, who the managing partners, how many assets do you own? How many properties have you bought in the last 12 months? Have you ever dropped a deal? That means you put it under contract and couldn't close it. If so, why? Again, a total portfolio. Do you own in this submarket? If so, how many units? What's your entry cap rate? What's your per unit expense year one? What's your NOI year one? Different questions like that. It's pretty, detailed. I don't think it's used as much as people would like to think it is, but it's still a necessary step. And then you're going to submit that questionnaire completed with your second offer. And so at this point, you're talking to the broker. Okay, what's the seller most interested in? Is he interested in terms? That's, hard money, earnest money, closing time frame, or are they interested more in the purchase price? Is it just a dollar figure for them, or is it, I want surety to close? So find out what that group, the seller group, is wanting, and then talk to your broker and get that guidance. So your second offer is going to be a little more detailed or guided towards the specific seller desires to make it more, make yourself more desirable to that seller. So you're going to submit the second offer, and then they're going to usually have what they call buyer interview calls. So they're going to have the questionnaire that you submitted in front of them. This is going to be the broker, the seller, and your group, whoever's in your group, managing partners or whoever's on the GP. And you're going to have a call, and you're going to, they're going to ask you questions about, whatever. And so it really is a whatever type thing. They're trying to get a feel for, are you legitimate? Are you a tire kicker? And are you going to be able to close this deal? After that, then usually they'll try to get a third bid from you. And just hear me when I tell you that every single deal that I've ever been in, they've said, there's not going to be a third round. There's not going to be a third round, but every single deal I've been in, there's been a third round. Okay. So just know that it's going to be the case. So it's a delicate process to know how much you should leave in the tank per se to offer on that third round. So after that, then it's really just up to, again, your relationship with the broker, and are they going to kind of push you as the best buyer for this property? And do you have the best price? So at that point, it's really not in your hands, and you win some, you lose some, and it can be frustrating. You put so much work, hours and hours of work in that deal all the way up to that point just to lose it at the end. Happens all the time. One thing I'll tell you is do not get upset with the broker because they pick somebody else, because that's going to burn bridges for later deals. Just say, oh man, that stinks. I appreciate all your help. Let's get the next one, and just move on. I've seen groups get upset. I've heard groups get upset, and it does not do you any good. So just move on. It's not meant to be. Okay. And I'm going to answer the question. There's a question about LOI. Are the same LOI, or is it different one? So I'm going to get into that in just a minute. I'm going to look real quick at the questions, then we're going to jump into, I'm actually going to fill out an LOI in front of you, and then I'm going to put this LOI template without our stuff in there for you to look at. So let me just look at the question answers. How can you trust a broker if they tell you there are multiple offers on the property? Guaranteed there's multiple offers on the property. I know the brokers. I play golf with them if I can. I go out to lunch with them if I can, unless they're just down and dirty, which, I don't think any of them are that I've met. there are going to be a lot of people, especially at the level where, these are international buyers. So we're dealing with West Coast, East Coast, all over the place. All right. And then again, the question, what is whisper price? Whisper price is the same as guidance. Kind of what is that? We just use guidance. What's your guidance on that? So I'm going to do that one. Do certain properties or markets have CFO dates with no offers being obtained? I've never seen that happen. Usually because the brokers have underwritten this deal ahead of time and they've done their research and they know what they can get for the property. And so they're not going to even list it if they don't think it's reasonable. That's going to hurt their business later on when they go to try to sell someone else's property. It's like, well, last time you told me you're going to sell my property for this much and I didn't even get an offer. So we're not using you again. So they're very careful to make sure they don't list something that is not going to be sold. All right, so I'm going to minimize the question answer and the chat box for a second. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. This is my, I'm going to pull up my chat over here. All right, so this is our LOI. Oh, there we go. Everybody can see that? If you can, put it in the chat box. Say yes. All right, awesome. All right, so this is our LOI template. We are going to give you this gratis in the webinar recording email. So please use it. We use it all the time. I used it 3 times this week. So, all right, and this is in template format. If you've never worked with templates before, I'm going to show you real quick. Look up here at the developer page. Developer tab. If you don't see that in your Word, just Google how to add the developer tab to your Word documents. This is how we do things like add calendars. Some of this may be secondhand to you, but for some, it may not be. So, and same thing here. I can put all my brokers' names. I can go up to developer and click on properties, and I can add any brokers. So when I go to fill it out, I just have to click on the drop down and pick a broker. Okay, that way I don't have to type it every time and I avoid mistakes, human error. So I have the date. Obviously I just click today. This is all the letterhead, which you can, change all that as desired. I took all that out of the one I'm going to send to you. So I'm picking this one. Again, you can pick Cushman Wake, NKF, Newmark, Knight Frank, JLL, CBRE, Capstone, Berkadia, whoever you'd work with, put that in there. Letter of intent, I'm going to put, and if I click on this, you see it pulls up property name. I'm just going to type the property name in there. City, you can see the little header right there. State abbreviation. I've added in here the states that we buy in. Okay, so you can add, again, you just go up to properties and you can add or delete as needed over here. Okay, so I'm putting the property name, city, state. And then this is a lot of, mumbo jumbo. I'm not going to get a lot into all of that, but I want to go over at a high level kind of what we are focused on. So purchase price, that's the number one. So purchase price spelled. So I have it very spelled out, if you will. So this is where you're going to spell out the amount, whether it's 10 million, 1 million, 40 million, 500, whatever. You're going to put that there. And then you're going to go here, purchase price numeric. Okay. And then you're going to put obviously the numeric digits there. The purchase price shall be payable at closing in cash. Or its equivalent cash, obviously from debt, most likely, unless you have been blessed more than most. And then earnest money deposit. I want to talk about that a little bit. Earnest money is, kind of your escrow money, or you're going to put that down to prove that you're interested in the property or you have some skin in the game. All right. So right here, pre-DD earnest money. That's pre-due diligence earnest money. Okay. I'll get to that in a little bit. So you're going to spell that out. Let's say, now on average, you want to put the total earnest money at 2%, but that is pre-due diligence and post-due diligence. So 1% is what I recommend pre-due diligence. And once you've done all your due diligence and the deal is fine and you're going to move forward with it and there's no problems, then you're going to put in your second round of earnest money, and that should be around another 1%. What I do is do 2%, rounded down to the nearest whole number, divided by 2, so half of it goes pre-due diligence and half of it goes post-due diligence. Okay. And I'm not watching my Q&A, so I'll get to those questions in a minute. Okay, so there's your money payable into escrow with third-party escrow agent after agreement is signed. That's the agreement is determined up here, and that's the PSA or purchase and sale agreement. There's your numeric. This is how much is going to be non-refundable. So this is your hard money. What you're doing with hard money is you're saying, okay, here's my earnest money. Let's just say it's $100,000, and you're going to put the digits there. And I'm going to say 50,000 of that 100,000 is non-refundable. That means I don't care what I find in due diligence. That money, I have underwritten this so well that no matter what I find, we'll be good. Now I do put a couple contingencies on that. That's going to be non-refundable, contingent on updated title, survey, and most recent positive phase 1 environmental test results. Okay. So if there's something wrong with the title, that's going to be a problem, and we want to be able to get that money back. Survey, if there's a property line issue, or a building's over a line or something, that's going to be an issue. Or phase 1 environmental. So if there's ground contamination or something that's just going to completely kill the deal, those are the only contingencies I put on my hard money. Hard money is very, very valuable bargaining chip. This shows the buyer how interested you are and how serious you are. So if you really want a deal and you really know you sharpened your pencil, put as much here as possible. So, we've gone up as high as, $500,000, or actually 700,000 was the highest hard money, like non-refundable earnest money we've done on a deal so far. And that's risky and it's scary. And that's where you trust that you've done your risk mitigation and you've done your homework on the due diligence prior to putting the deal under contract. All right. So you're to that point, and then you see right here an additional. And here's, you're going to put how much. This is the second round of earnest money. So after you've done all your unit walks, your lease audits, you've had your property condition report from your lender, all of those things are done, you're going to go ahead and release the rest of the funds in. And so just real quick, this may be confusing. Follow me. If I put $100,000 initial, $50,000 being hard day one, the other 50,000 is going to go hard after due diligence, and this other amount that I'm putting in here, whether it be another 100,000 just for this case. All right. So you're going to have a total of 200,000 in there now that's non-refundable because you checked everything. Now all you're doing is waiting on the bank to finish the paperwork and get the loan done. If that makes sense to everybody. You have inspection period, due diligence. This puts the time frame on it. This is if you scroll over, you'll see the things that I changed. You can see right there. This is a changeable metric. Some buyers or some sellers want to close quickly, and they're going to test your ability to close quickly by shortening that time frame. I've seen it as low as 21 days on due diligence, and so that is a bargaining chip. These are called terms. Due diligence, earnest money, hard money, those are all terms that are negotiating chips. It's not just price, okay? That's one of them, but it's not the only one. So pay attention to that. There's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo here. You can read through when you get the copy of it. And then on or before 30 days after satisfaction of the inspection contingency set forth in paragraph 3. Okay. So 30 days to do our unit walks, lease audits, all the rest of it. Then after that's done, all the money goes hard. And then we have another 30 days to close. This is when the bank's finalizing everything. They're checking, occupancy and rent roll and, getting an appraisal and all that. You got 30 more days to do that. You can put an extension in here, which we have built in, but you see it's highlighted here. Okay. 30 days. Usually what we do in the first offer is just do real basic, no hard money first offer, go as close to best and final cutoff as possible and leave yourself 30 days due diligence, 30 days after that, and a 30-day extension. And then in second round is where you start to negotiate that. Okay. And once you've negotiated that, sometimes they'll say, we don't want to give you an extension. We have to close by this date and we're not going to give you an extension. Now that's risky because maybe your bank drags its feet and you can't control that and it goes past the 30 days. So you have to really have confidence in your debt team at that point. All right. And then the only other changeable metric is right here where you can do any state. And again, I have the drop downs or county taxes, it's just legal stuff there. I have my signature already pre-done in the, so I don't have to fill any of that out. What I do is get this all filled in and I convert it to a PDF and I submit that in as my offer. Okay. Now I'm going to stop share there. I know that was like drinking out of a fire hydrant and, I apologize for that, but I'm doing the best I can to give you as much content as possible. So I'm going to pull back up my Q&A box and let's see if we can go through some of these questions. And so I'll go back to the question, what are you actually submitting on these second and third round, the redone LOI or a brand new one? So I save the Word template that I just was showing you, even though I converted it to a PDF, I saved the Word one in that format and I put them both in our system and I, call it version 1. And so when I go to second round, I am going to update those terms in that LOI, but I'm just going to change the specifics that I am changing, like those terms that I went over. And I'm going to save that as version 2, both in a Word and in a PDF. I'm going to resubmit that. And then third round, same thing. All right. What's your go-to website to check commercial comps? So, we don't do any commercial real estate, it's all multifamily, but multifamily and commercial, quite frankly, we use CoStar. CoStar is the most comprehensive data website that you can get your hands on and is very, very valuable. It shows you historical vacancy rates, occupancy, everything you can possibly want to know about a property. But do verify because there are mistakes in that, even that, as much as it does cost. All right. Okay. Yep. Little spelling error in the LOI. So yeah, if you see any of that in there, just go ahead and get it corrected. No big deal. And we just got a question about survey. I'm not going to be able to get to that this time because we're going to be focused on the negotiation side of it, but we'll definitely be dealing with some of that other stuff in some of the following webinars. So sorry, I can't get to that question. Is the escrow used as part of the down payment? Yes. Any of the earnest money is taken away from the total purchase price. So it's not just money lost. It goes towards the property, but it's held in escrow and is not actually hard or is not actually effective, if that's a better term that makes more sense to people, until the terms have been met within the contract. And escrow use. Where can I find that doc? Okay, so the document, you're going to receive an email when this recording comes out. It is going to have a link, a Dropbox link to this document. It's not going to have my letter, my logo and my name and our attorney's name in there. Okay. So it's going to be blank. You can add those things in there, but it's going to have all the fill-in blanks it's going to be everything else that I just showed you with the states, and you can adjust, what states you purchase in, but that you can use that. The legal jargon is correct in that's been sent to our counsel, but have your counsel check it because you're liable for your own documents. This is just some content that we find helpful, but I'm not a legal professional, so make sure you check that with your legal professional. Any tips and tricks on negotiating off-market deals? Yes. Glad you brought that up. Off-market deals are rarely, I shouldn't say that, not really, but rarely are they truly off market in that no one else is looking at it but you. Off market deals is I've built a relationship with the broker. He knows what I'm looking for. He gives me a phone call and said, hey, there's this deal I think you might like. And then I get the specifics of it. And he or she gives me the details of the deal and we go from there. Typically they've done that and had that same conversation with 2 or 3 other groups most of the time. There has been the rare occasion we just closed the deal and that was the deal. We were the only ones looking at it and we just negotiated the price. So on that in that case, it's a lot more straightforward. They pretty much just give you the price that if you can hit it, you can get it. But a lot of times it's a little bit higher. So they're kind of testing the market to see if they can get it before they go full market. So if they can hit pretty close to their BOV, broker opinion of value, before they go through all the process of having to put together an offering memorandum and all that listing and tours and all the rest of it, if they can get pretty close to that off market, then they're going to do it. So it's not like you're going to get a huge discount most of the time on an off market deal. I'd say maybe 1%, maybe the discount on that. So it's not going to be huge. Let's see. If you don't have CoStar, then where do you go? Man, there's so many different sites out there. You can use apartments.com because that shows you a map with different apartments on it. And you can kind of get a feel for which ones are your competition. But I don't want to get too deep into that. What percentage changes from LOI 1, 2, and 3? That is totally dependent on the deal. I had one this week. It changed first round, couple $100,000, second round, couple $100,000, third round, 1.5 million. So you can't ever tell what it's going to do. And so that's where the constant communication with the broker comes into play. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, that's yours, buddy. If you can spend that kind of money on it, we cannot. And, again, it's frustrating when you put that much work into it and you're right there and all of a sudden something just blows out of the water and you're shaking your head. Like, I don't know how the deal makes sense because numbers are numbers and usually everybody's pretty close to each other. But if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say 2% variance if I had to put a number on it. So hope that answers your question. When does the due diligence day start, and is there a minimum or max days for DD? Due diligence starts usually the day the PSA, the purchase sale agreement, is signed. That usually takes about a week, 7 days or so after the acceptance or you're awarded the deal. So then your counsel start going back and forth on the purchase sale agreement. So you'll get a draft. Your counsel will redline it. You'll send it back. They'll redline that one. And you'll send it back. And you go back and forth. Finally, you sign it. They countersign it. And then that starts due diligence. You wire your earnest money deposit and you're off to the races. There's no minimum or maximum. I wouldn't go much lower than 21 days unless you have superpowers on due diligence. Any special or different clauses to add to LOI due to COVID? There are the only things we put in for COVID is in the purchase and sale agreement. The LOI is it's just a summary really of the terms and doesn't get into that much detail. Let's see. And I apologize. I'm not going to be able to get to all these questions. I have so many. And I apologize for that. Let me just scan through and see what we can get to. Is there a benefit to having a buyer broker, and is it usual to sign an agency agreement? There's no such thing at the level we're at. There's no such thing as a buyer agent. They're just not. Ever offer a cap rate price to against inflated financials? No, because in the purchase and sale agreement, they have to represent accurate financials. That's the whole deal is defunct if they misrepresented their financials. So I'm not really worried about that. How do you find brokers who have these off-market deals? Relationships. I think I've used the word relationship probably 15 to 20 times in this particular webinar, and I will say it 3 more times. Relationship. If you do not have a relationship with a broker, you're not going to get a deal. Period. End of story. End of discussion. You might as well just do something else. Get to know your broker. Go out to eat with them. Whatever they like to do, find out what they like to do. If they like to go to an NFL game, take them to an NFL game. If they like to watch hockey, take them to a hockey game. If they like to watch or go to an art gallery, see if you can find one and take them to that and invite their husband, wife, significant other, whatever. Relationship. It comes down to that. And then past that, it's ability to execute. And so once you've done a transaction with that broker, they know that you can execute. And then it's like the picture of a jet taking off, that you burn most of the fuel taking off, but once you're up to cruise altitude, you're burning much less fuel. Before you've bought your first deal, you're going to burn a lot of energy trying to get your first deal, but it will happen. You just keep on keeping on. Here's a broker input. I usually give buyers a short window on off market deals before sending to another buyer, just to be fair. That's that happens a lot. Hey, I need to know something real quick by the end of this week if you can get on this deal. And that's where your ability to turn around deals really quickly comes into play. So off market deals, that is a true statement. So thank you for adding that. And that a lot of times we've just had to turn them down because we can't turn something around that fast. We're working on 3 or 4 other deals, and this off-market deal comes in and like, I need an answer by, tomorrow. And I'm just like, man, I can't get to it, so I just let it go. And it may have been the best deal of my life, but it's just, I can only handle so much. Letters of intent become legally binding. When do they become legally binding? Do you have to get the purchase and sale agreement to have a legally binding deal? Yes. Typically that's the case. It's rare, honestly, in my experience, that you get a countersigned LOI. I sign it, I send it in. Really, that's just to like get the ball rolling and then say, okay, the deal's yours, and we go to work working on the purchase and sale agreement. And that's really the legally binding document. To be honest with you, I've never had a double signed LOI in any transaction that I've had. So typically, no. The purchases or the LOI is just to get you the basic terms. Now, when you get to the PSA, you send them a copy of the LOI to counsel, and they use that for their draft. We're almost through the question, so I'm going to, on the question and answer, I have not even looked at the chat box yet. Is there a script that you originally used when talking directly with the seller or listing agent? If so, can you share it? If not, where can we possibly find one? How should we go about creating one? Thanks. So it's a little bit more organic than that. It's not very scripted. I'm typically not talking to the seller personally. I do get to know sellers in the space, but on a different level. I am trying to just build relationships. So when we do put an offer on a property through a broker, that seller who's in the background, who I'm not communicating with, knows, oh, that's passiveinvesting.com. I remember those guys. I met them at NMHC, and we talked about deals in the Southeast, right? So those relationships again come up, but I rarely have conversations with the seller. And if it's fully listed or fully marketed, I am very careful never to contact the seller, even if they're my best buddy. You could really upset a broker or feel like you're trying to cut them out. So be careful, be respectful of the process, and follow those guidelines. Again, the template LOI is going to come out in the email. That's another question. How do you differentiate who is a local broker versus an institutional broker? Okay, so institutional brokers have local offices. So your big JLL, NKF, Cushman Wakefield, whoever it is, they are going to have a Southeast team, and then they're going to have, let's just say a Raleigh team, a Charlotte team, a Charleston team, a Greenville team, or, Atlanta team, a Jacksonville team. So they're under the umbrella of the big broker, but they have sub offices. So you got to get to know each group of brokers in each sub market, and you have to remember who's in each sub market. So you'll have 2 or 3 for this broker in Charlotte, 2 or 3 for this broker in Charlotte, 2 or 3 for this broker in Charlotte, and you're dealing with that same brokerage firm, but a couple different brokers in Raleigh or Jacksonville or wherever. So it's a CRM or anything like that is a good thing to use to keep that straight. I just put them in my phone as, such and such brokerage firm, and I put the submarket in there. And I mean, I get to know them to the point where I remember it now, but when you're starting out, it's kind of hard to do. CRM, what CRM do we use? Constant Contact is what we're using right now. That's more on the investor side, to be honest with you. But Contactually is one that I've seen a lot of people use, because you can kind of put it in buckets. So you could create buckets for Charlotte, Raleigh, Jacksonville, or whatever market you're in. I'm just using some that we do. And you can create buckets and put brokers in those buckets and sub buckets of each brokerage firm. So that one I like because of the compartmentalization of that platform. All right. So that's going to be about all the time we have. And I apologize for not being able to answer all the questions for you. There's a lot in the chat that I did not get to. So again, hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming for you. Always feel free to email me, Brandon@passiveinvesting.com, with any questions. We're glad to help as we are able. This content and much, much more are available at the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit coming up in January of 2021. And also be sure to check out passiveinvesting.com if you're interested in investing, and go to our current offerings tab and check out what we have there. And we're working as hard as we can to get some more stuff out. But be sure to check us out again. We have a webinar next week and more great content. So be sure to join us often, and be sure to tell your friends about us, and we'll do the best we can to get you on down your journey on multifamily and share the content that we've learned along the way and help to make it as easy as possible for everyone else that wants to get into this great industry. So again, thanks for being with us today, and join us next time.